Hello, before this video starts, I thought I would take the time to explain some changes that we're gonna do. So from now on, instead of uploading the entire 1 hour podcast, we're gonna divide it into subtopics, which should last around 20 to 30 minutes. This is how we're gonna do it from now on, because we figured out that watching an hour-long podcast all in a row can be quite daunting. So what you're about to watch is gonna be the first part of 3 or 4 maybe of the socialism in Latin America topic. And yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Let's start. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic.
Welcome back
Andres, your screen
to
froze.
Pickle Boys. Today is Wednesday, and we did not
best day
film
of
a
the week.
podcast on Tuesday. Why, you may be asking? Well, because even though we have online classes, we are still very stressed, and we are still in arguably what is the most important year of our secondary education. 11th grade is a hard year, especially being in the IB. And as a group who is in very similar classes, we all have a very extensive work and research to do for all of them. And the rigor is just picking up, especially since we're missing classes and we're having shorter class times, and the homework is gradually increasing. So today we're going to be speaking about a topic which we're very familiar with. We're going to be talking about socialism in Latin America. Does it work? Will it work? What's preventing it from happening? And we have lived in Latin America most of our entire lives. I know personally, I've lived in Latin America since I was 5 years old. I moved to Guatemala.
3, beat that.
Okay.
I've
I'm
always
sorry.
lived in Latin America.
Okay. I'm glad I lived in a first world country for 5 years, though.
Oh, I lived in another one for 3.
Oh!
You see, we're interchanging. You lived in.
So I moved from Vermont to Guatemala when I was 5. I moved from Guatemala to Peru when I was 10, and I moved from Peru to Panama when I was 16. And I'm turning 17 on Friday, so.
What?
Oh my God! Really?
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Wow! I already know the title for this video. Andres' birthday gift.
Bro, you have an
after he
obsession
destroyed
with
his
putting
entire
Andres
career.
as a title.
Yes.
You're obsessed with him. You have a massive crush on him.
You have a crush
Bro,
with me.
it's just he says the most highlightable thing every single podcast. I don't know. Most clickbaity things.
I can get that. I
But
have been recognized as a walking meme on many occasions. So yeah.
No,
He's split
but
walking.
I don't know. I need to address the elephant in the room, but now that we're trying this new thing with actual cameras, well, you and me, Andres, are you gonna appear like Floor Gang when when I get the video from the GoPro?
Yeah, I mean, for all of you viewers who don't know, PewDiePie, the world's individual who has the most YouTube subscribers.
YouTuber, just say YouTuber.
Yeah, but he's not the YouTuber with the most subscribers. He's the individual with the most YouTube subscribers, because T-Series is a corporation. So I just wanted to.
That's
clear
the
that.
YouTube channel with the most subscribers.
Yeah, I just wanted to clear it up. Because you could arguably say that if you were featured in a T-Series video, that you're the most subscribed YouTuber. But yeah, so for all of you who don't know, PewDiePie has this new trend called Floor Gang. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm on the floor. Gang, floor gang. Ah! Floor gang.
Okay. So, moving into the topic.
Hey,
Andres,
no, wait. We need to do something we haven't done since the start of the video, since the start of the podcast that we ask all our guests, or we've done 2 times basically, and we haven't done ourselves, and is align ourselves in the political spectrum.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Lucas should go first.
In most cases, I'm a moderate, but I guess that I lean more. If I had to put myself being honest, I'm more of a social democrat.
Bro, that's not moderate.
No. Like, okay, I think that when I see myself like within the context of the U.S., I'm a moderate, but in general, I'm more of a social democrat, which the policies that I follow quite a lot. The Argentine ones, I'm a progressive peronista.
Okay.
You,
You go?
Andres?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Well,
Honestly.
despite the stereotypes, let's call it that
The sentiment.
the sentiment that's put on me, I'm center right,
Okay.
and when it comes to economics, I'm more right than anything. But when it comes to social politics, I'm central, depending on the situation.
Okay. Sounds good. I think.
You said you were a Gucci something.
I said I was a Gucci Marxist, which is basically just a fancy way
I
of saying
Googled
I'm a postmodern liberal. But I think putting it into context, I'm like a JFK, you know?
Oh no!
No, because JFK, he was a progressive guy socially. He pushed for equal rights. His successor,
Yeah.
Lyndon B. Johnson, granted Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement their rights, obviously. And JFK, but JFK also had a very firm position with his economics and with his foreign policy, which was strength over kindness. He wasn't someone who was up for appeasement, because he realized that in World War II and World War I that didn't work. And also economically, he was a bit more centered. He was a bit actually more right wing than he was a leftist. He believed that there should be less taxes for people, because he believes that people invest better in their own. They invest better when it's up to them, not up to the government. And it's arguably true that if you lower taxes and allow people to invest a little bit more in the stock market or different firms, that you're still going to have the same outcome. So to that extent, I am like JFK. I'm a moderate, but I definitely believe that there are certain social issues, certain that we need an uplifting of the people, that we need to help people who are below the poverty line and who are in the middle class, and that the government isn't doing anything about that on both sides. And they need to step up for the people who are really marginalized. Obviously, case in point, because I live in Latin America and I see all the poverty, I see how oligarchy works, and I don't want that same thing to happen in the United States, even though it's coming closer.
Okay, so now moving to the topic, Andres.
We were doing a good summary of where we lived, and only Andres did it.
Yeah, so
Should we do that?
Lucas, where did you live?
I lived in Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina, and then Panama.
Wow.
Whoa.
You, Hugo?
Oh my god. Okay, I'm so excited to say this. I lived in Spain.
Whoa.
First of all.
What?
Second of all, I lived in Ecuador. And third, Panama.
Oh, right.
Oh, that's a very
Oh my god.
We all have very impressive lists. Oh my god.
I know.
It's so wondrous that we've all come together,
We're citizens of the world.
children of the third culture, to create this beautiful podcast. So let's get into
Thank God you have.
It's been 8 minutes of intro. I think people want to talk about the issue for our 10 viewers out there.
Actually, we're hitting 20 views pretty consistently.
Yeah, we only have 10 subscribers, so we went from being
11.
We now have 11.
Every single number counts.
Okay. I'm gonna put it on my Instagram story today to follow the Pickle Boys.
Like me.
Yeah, like you. But I don't.
But done properly.
Got one subscriber from your...
Oh yes, I did. Because when I put it up, I put the link in the description instead of the website in my story. People couldn't click it. Okay, let's start.
Andres, what's your definition for socialism?
Socialism means that firms are owned by the state. It's
Well,
like
it depends.
Okay. Okay. And Hugo, how would you define socialism?
Socialism is when the government has more direct control over the market and regulates it instead of letting it run by itself, which involves making companies part of the government.
Right. So when we talk about socialism in Latin America, I think that we need to make one big distinguish, which is this socialism in the 20th century and the 21st century. In the 20th century, right before the dictatorships became a form of government very popular in Latin America due to being forced into that system, the socialism movement came and they aligned themselves a lot with the ideas of Karl Marx. And by doing so, it got closely related to the word also communism. However, since after post the dictatorships and then moving into the 90s, the IMF did some restructuring when it came to loans and debt, and that was a big factor for a lot of society to be unsatisfied with the current government, which that led to a wave of left-wing governments such as Lula's in Brazil, Nestor Kirchner in Argentina, and some in more other states like Venezuela, like Maduro's. So I think and the socialism experience in the 21st century is that one more closer to a social democratic and a more revolutionary type of socialism than we've seen in the past.
Okay. So I think we need to get it very straight from the beginning, from the get-go. Hands up if you think socialism is something good for the Latin American countries.
But I think we need to further. We can't just jump.
Okay,
jump
we need to give
that.
our opinion.
We need to like distinguish
Elaborate.
what the limitations would be, what the margins would be. We need to distinguish what socialism would look like, how socialism would be reached, and all of those kinds of things. I think we can't just jump to conclusions like that.
Okay, let's start with why. Why would we think it's good or bad or work or not?
I think that I think the ideology of socialism works, but the reason why it doesn't have a lot of successful, it's with the way it's implemented and the people we put in power to implement it. The idea, for me, socialism is the textbook definition of socialism is a political and economic theory that argues that the production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. And I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. I think that if we have a democratic system in which we put people in power, we should also put people in power of businesses and the economy. But I don't also believe that it should be done to an extent. Just like capitalism to an extent doesn't work. I think that there needs to be some government intervention and some moderation. That's why, I would see in the case of Latin America specifically, I am more of a social democrat, but I do see myself leaning more towards the center than to socialism, because I don't think that socialism should be able to run itself free. But specifically in the case of Latin America, we've seen a lot of the population is very traumatized, and there's massive and I feel that the backbone of Latin America is not supported enough. It's not strengthened to its full potential. It's not empowered. And socialism, at least in the 21st century, the way it's being implemented, specifically, my favorite example is Lula's presidency. I think that it's the direction that Latin America needs right now in order to strengthen itself for the future.
And how do you believe Latin America can achieve that, seeing that in every country there is a clear oligarchy which has been set in place since the viceroyships?
I think that
it falls
back. It is true. I think
you're like
that
Olivia last podcast, bro, like with the patriarchy.
No, but I'm scrutinizing. Like our job is to scrutinize the other point of view. She couldn't understand that. Let's not get into a fight about Olivia right now. Let's just.
Okay, Andres, repeat your point again, please.
Okay.
Seeing as there has been a clear oligarchy in Latin America since the viceroyships of Spain and Portugal, how are you going to achieve this? How are you going to overthrow the total dominant power that they have over the government, over industries, and basically over the media information provided to the populace?
I think that when we talk about socialism in Latin America, specifically in the 21st century, we have to consider that it's not the type of socialism that we tend to think or come to first when we see the ideology. When we think of socialism due to historical context, we tend to align a lot with communism. Or if I say, oh, I think that people should be in power, or we should empower the people, like I've already phrased it wrong or explained it poorly, and I apologize for that. But what I'm trying to say is that the government I do believe that the government has to be involved to a certain degree within the economy and regulate it and make sure that it's being functional and avoid recessions, avoid shortages, just like avoid overallocations of resources. But I think that the people should also be able to have the power. I think that socialism itself, the ideology, is not bad, especially with its revolutionary forms. However, it cannot be implemented by way of force. By force, it has to be implemented by utilizing participatory democracy and to secure power, education, scientific knowledge within the national society and when we talk about international cooperation.
Okay. So you like to talk about Lula, and I think you like what he did as presidency, from what I understood.
I think that this is my problem with socialism. Although I like the ideals and they're very appealing to me and they're appealing to a lot of society, when I come to vote, although I do see myself aligning with those ideals, I always consider myself what's more realistic. Am I gonna choose someone who's gonna actually do what he promised? Is he just saying, "Oh, does this?" Be corrupt.
Oh, okay. But in general, you liked what Lula stood for, and you liked what he did during his presidency. Okay. My problem here is with your statement about socialism cannot come through force. But you saw that Lula was democratically elected by the people of Brazil, and his successor, Dilma, got elected, right?
Yeah.
But then there was a whole corruption scandal which got her impeached. And you see that because of that
she wasn't impeached by the corruption scandal. She was impeached by abusing her presidential power and spending too much.
Okay. Well, she was impeached. Either way, she was still impeached. She was still impeached. A left-wing politician was impeached who was succeeding in the footsteps of Lula. And then what do we see happen? We see a very far right-wing populist come to the presidency and basically reverse everything that Lula had done. Knowing that the Latin American people do not have faith in their government at all, and when they elect people, they believe that they are going to make all of the changes in the world and make their country a first world country and all that kind of stuff. But still, nothing's going to happen because it's Latin America and they really can't get to work. At least from my perspective. Seeing as this is a very common process, how do you believe that there is going to be progressive and linear, like a linear growth of socialism within Latin America, like a linear growth of people who are more open and receptive to the ideas of socialism, seen as one mistake by a left-wing leader caused a whole landslide to happen and for a right-wing populist to come to power?
I think that the way that I see it is that I'm going to go for the general thing first, and then I'm going to talk about Lula more specific, okay? I think that in general, socialism has a very infamous reputation. And although we can see the ideals and we can see what's appealing to most of the population, due to, as you said, a lot of the backlashes that it receives and how one mistake can lead to another thing, it continues to fuel this infamous reputation. However, I think that because it already has an infamous reputation, when there's one situation specific, I think that we condemn more the left than the right. Because of the way society has been built, this is the way that we have our systems built, are more, maybe we can say that we're turning more centered, but it's still right. Most of the world works based on capitalism, for example, which is the right. And that's just one of our examples in which the many systems that we have that are directed into that. We have educational systems, health systems. We have, even in public systems here in Panama, like for example, public education, there's inequality, and that selection of going for the greater good, that greed is still present, and greed is a concept from capitalism, which is the right. So I think that since we build and we live in this more, let's call it moderate right world, the left, since it already has an infamous reputation, receives a more negative response when something happens than when someone to the right does it.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, you can talk. Okay.
You see, it is a common thing, especially in the media, to paint right-wing oriented leaders as racist or sexist or whatever. Take for example Donald Trump, who is a right-wing. That happens. That has happened also in Spain, and I know that happens also worldwide because I see it. Like in Italy. Is receiving a lot of attention from international media and painting it in a bad light due to its right-wing populism type of government.
But
so
it's not just right-wing. You have to understand that the government majority is a coalition between radical leftists and radical right.
So what's the point?
That's the populist movement. It's not just right-wing. So you have to understand that even though the media is painting this movement as a right-wing racist group, well, it's still on the left.
Then
there's still people on the left.
Just helped me prove my point. If
yes,
it's also left-wing, why don't they also say it's right and left-wing?
Because there's a clear bias in the media. But we're talking about Latin America.
There you go.
We're not talking about the media.
I mean, I'm talking in general, my guy. Okay, we're talking in general.
Let's focus in Latin America because that's what the podcast is about.
Okay. What's next?